Welcome to Pro Tips by Mueller.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to trim out a framed opening. This is be set up for a window. This would work for a window unit, any type of framed opening that's going to have both a header and a sill. In the event that you were trimming out a window, you would want the window installed. That way you can get your trim in tight and everything sealed well. The first thing that we'll do is we'll pull a measurement on our sill. We're going to do our sill, our jamb, and then our header. So the very first thing, Daniel, if you hold me there, is we'll pull a measurement. When you're pulling precise measurements, it's nice to have someone assist you. So in this event, our inside measurement is going to be 36 and an 1/8 inch. And we will move that measurement to here. This is a 0300 head trim. It has a closed hem on it. This is what we will be using for our sill trim. Anytime you're using factory trim, you want to ensure that you do have a clean factory cut. Sometimes these can be imperfect, so before you assume that you can use it, you want to visually check and make sure that you can. Everything looks good. You'll pull your measurement and transfer it onto here. Once you have your mark, you can simply use a speed square to transfer that mark around. Just like so. So what you want to try to do when cutting trim is not fully close your snips, and that'll give you a nice clean cut. Until you get to the end. Otherwise, you'd end up with that dimple in the middle of your trim. When you're cutting a U piece, it's easier to cut one side, then skip over to your other side. Again, this is our trash piece. And we're taking the line. We're not leaving it. That way we're not leaving a marked up piece on our finished trim. When you go to make this cut, a lot of people will bend it back and forth. That can work, but sometimes we'll leave it curled, a curled edge. The easiest thing to do is bend it partially, and you can come in with your other snips and get a nice clean cut right there. By doing it that way, you're not leaving a mark. All that Sharpie's been taken off. Once you have your piece cut, you can move it into place. The reason we clamp it before we screw it is we can get it secured in the correct location, and the material is not going to walk on us while we're screwing it in. That way we ensure that it stays in its proper place. You're going to use a pan head screw so that it doesn't interfere with your sheets later on. See that? Once you have it attached, you can remove your clamps. After you install your sill trim, you're going to install your jamb trim. This is what's going to go vertically and receive your wall sheets. You'll know a jamb trim by the open hem that we place there. This is to help hold any sheets tight in the event that you end with a rib inside of this jamb trim. That helps hold everything tight. It also assists later on, you'll see, when we go to put our tab in from our head trim. When measuring your jamb trim, you can measure from two different options. I always measure from the inside because I know what that distance is. You could also measure from there. It's just important to know where you're measuring from. So if I measure from right there, from there to my inside, we're going to be 47 and 9/16. So we're going to transfer our measurement onto here. we know that we're 47 and 9/16 to the inside. What we need to know is that we need to add 1.5 inches for the width of our down flange on our sill trim. So we're going to go 47 and 9/16 plus 1 inch plus 1/2. That is going to be the far cut edge of our trim. Just like on our sill trim, we'll mark it and cut it. Having done that, we now know that we have 1.5 inch tab coming down off our sill trim. We're going to cut a tab for this jam trim to sit into. So we're going to mark what we're tabbing to. So we'll transfer mark there, and a small mark there. And then we'll cut our tab. Go approximately halfway, take a bend, and cut to our mark. We'll take our greens and do the same. Having cut those, we'll straighten our tabs. And that creates our tab that will go into our sill trim. Now that you have your tab cut, you're going to place all 3 tabs into your head trim. Once you have it clamped, you can attach with your panhead screws. Next up, we're going to install our 0300 head trim. Has the closed hem. This is the same trim that we used for our door sill. Instead of pulling a tape measure, one option that you can do a lot of times when trimming out framed openings is hold it up and mark your edge flush. You'll hold that edge, and I will just come in here and mark our finished edge. So now that we have our out-to-out edge cut, we're going to, just like the bottom of our jams, we're going to come in and mark our 1.5 inches back. This is going to be the edge of our tabs. Just like we offer multiple trim options, there's also many times different ways to install those trims besides just what we're showing. When feeding this into your head trim, sometimes it's easier to take a little bit off that bottom tab, just like so. Now we'll place our head trim inside of our jam trim. All 3 tabs funneling down into the jam trim.
Pull that out again. Put it back in. All right, good. Good.
The benefits of a 3-tab system is you have 3 different tabs helping funnel water down in there. You can also funnel this tab down into that open hem of your jam trim and then close that down. That'll help hold this all nice and tight without the use of a rivet. Next trim up that we're going to install is our door and window head. We offer 2 different options. This one's a 7-inch. It has a hem, which is this folded piece in return. We also offer an unhemmed version. For a lot of this trim, instead of pulling a measurement, you can also hold it in place. Daniel will hold that in flush, and I'll mark my cut on this edge over here. We want this to end flush with the end of our trim. That's just an optional way that you can go about marking and cutting your trim. Now that we have our edge mark, just like with the rest of our trims, we're going to transfer it out for our cut line. All right, now we'll place our door and window head. This will sit right up over top the edge of our jam trim and sit flush with our reveal edge of our trim. It's important to note, just like we offer different versions of trim, there's also different ways of doing it. While we did a 3-tab system on this, that is by no means the only way to do that. There are many different ways of installing different trims. The primary reason we're showing this for door and window head is it has this outside lip to help push water out further away from our wall and let water drain from here and down, as opposed to a head trim where our water is all draining right into this U. The more we can keep water out and away, the less prone we will be to leaking. Again, head trim can be installed correctly. It can be tabbed differently. It can be installed in a way that it does not leak. We have wanted to illustrate this option as another way of doing it.